Hey guys, so I've been playing a ton of Ogre Kingdoms lately, and I thought I'd put together a little things I wish I knew list for Ogre Kingdoms, for new players, or no, I shouldn't say new players, but players who are new to Warhammer 3, because I know a lot of people played Warhammer 2 and they're probably decent enough at this game to get through everything. So anyway, I'm just gonna get right into it. So number one, build camps inside your own provinces. So I know that a lot of us would think that camps they automatically raid when they're in enemy territory. You replenish when you're in enemy territory while you're in the influence of a camp, etc., etc. But what I don't think people know when they first start out as Ogre Kingdoms is that Ogre Kingdoms camps, when you abandon the camp, you don't keep anything. So if you build a camp in enemy territory, eventually you're going to either have to protect it, or you're going to have to abandon it, or it's going to get lost, and you're going to lose all the buildings in there. And the Ogre Kingdoms can only build their tier 5 units inside camps, so you want to have a camp, or 2, or 3, or in my case 4, actually 5. You want these built in your own territory so you can actually get those tier 5 buildings. And keep them safe. That's the important part. So another reason to build camps in your own provinces is that camps have a building in them that provides income. And eventually there is a technology that increases the income of your camp buildings by 30%. And then there's a technology that increases income of all buildings by 10%. So every single one of your camps can earn up to 1,400 gold, which, if you include the garrison, is around 1,300 gold. So if you have 3 to 4 camps inside one province, that's almost 4k gold, which can basically fund a second army all by itself. Third tip, this goes along with camp still, is this building here. Let me see. The stash hut. So this says that it increases the recruit rank by 3 in the local province. It's pretty obvious when you think about it, but I didn't really it didn't click in my head until recently. This stacks with other camps. So if you have 3 camps with the stash hut in the province, that will give you the ability to recruit your units at rank 9. I think rank 9 is the highest rank. So right now I've only got 2 built, so I recruit my units at rank 4. But eventually you can't recruit your units at rank 9. Which is extremely important because, for those of you that do not know, let me see one of my lords here. The rank 7, so this right here, this continuous volley, for all Nobbler, for lead belchers, Nobbler scrap launchers, iron blasters, all the ranged units that the Ogre Kingdoms have, get an extra 10% range and 15% reload time reduction when they're rank 7 or above with like a lord that has that skill. And for the artillery, that's huge. For example, on Greasus, I have Nobbler scrap launchers that have 462 range now. I'm pretty sure it's one of the farthest ranges in the game. If not the farthest, I'm not entirely certain about that. I haven't played Cathay. Cathay might have a longer range artillery than that. But there's that, and then there's also the Iron Blaster, which has 380 range, so that would go up to 418, I believe. So the fact that you can recruit things at rank 9 is really, really huge, and I think it is definitely one of the biggest late game strength of Ogre Kingdoms, is the ability to build this tall. You can build tall, and you can recruit units at rank 9. I don't know if this is my 4th tip yet, but another tip anyway. I'm just going to make a long podge, whatever it's called, list. Another tip is don't forget that you can transfer your armies in between a camp and a lord whenever you want. All you have to do is just take your lord, right-click on the camp, and you can transfer these units in and out of the camp. So for example here, let's do this. I'm earning 5,375 gold this turn. If I take this out, if I take this army out of this camp, I go down to 2,400. So I'm saving almost 3,000 gold by having this lord sit here and keep this army inside the camp. That is huge. This is another bonus of building a camp inside your provinces. So you can leave a lord here to defend, but you don't have to pay for the upkeep of the army every turn. You can keep a really strong army inside a camp and just move it into and just transfer it to the lord whenever there's a threat. This is a huge defensive bonus for the Ogre Kingdoms, and this is how I always defend. I usually have 1 to 2 lords. I usually have my main lord and another lord. I have them rampaging or in the Chaos Realms, and then I have 1 lord just chilling here, ready to move if there's a threat somewhere. Also, don't forget that when these camps are all in range of each other, a camp can recruit from another camp. So if I had, for example, I can't draw here, but you can see my mouse. If I had an army coming down from this passage to this camp here, to the Fallen City camp, I could open up this recruitment panel, and I could quickly recruit a bunch of Ogre Bull Iron Fists and maybe a couple of Nobbler Scrap Launchers. I could do Iron Fists, some Scrap Launchers, I could do some Ogre Bulls here, and then I could do a bunch of Nobblers. So if you see an army coming, you can make that quick decision, like, is it worth my money to defend this camp? If you have a highly upgraded camp and your army can't get there in 1 turn, it might be worth it to recruit a big army to hopefully stave off the incursion. Another thing to note about Ogre Kingdoms and their camps. I know this might not be, some of you might know this right away, some of you might not notice this, but it's not said anywhere specifically. But if you are within this circle here, you can see the lines right here. If you are in this circle of a camp, your armies do not consume meat. This is another reason why you want to have a camp inside your province, especially early game, because it lets you start stacking up meat and you don't have to use it as much so when you do leave your province, you have plenty of meat stashed up for buffs, for the charge speed bonus, things like that. Another tip is that camps can be placed even after an ogre army has been moved. Camps can be placed. You can place a camp and you still have movement. You can place a camp while you're in forced march stance. So, for example, say this army here. If I wanted to go into, say this is enemy territory. If I wanted to go into enemy territory and leave a camp there, I could pop force march, I could run to right here, and I could drop the camp once I get there. If I wanted, say I wanted the camp to be in a safer position, I could walk to right here, drop the camp here, and then continue moving. So up here is actually a good actual scenario. So I wanted to siege Hanyu Port. So what I did was, I had Greasus right here, I walked up to right here, I dropped my tent right here, and then I sieged the city with Greasus from this side. So that way, I could replenish. If Greasus was attacked, he could replenish from the camp that was already set up here, and I could do all of that on the same turn. This is another tip for more of the late game, but the Ogre Kingdoms, their settlements can only go up to tier 3. So it's not actually in your best interest to occupy a city immediately. If you're going to fight a capital, for example, a capital city, if this capital city is tier 5 or tier 4, which you should be able to see when you're in range, if this capital is tier 5 or tier 4, you don't have to worry about it being damaged, because when you sack a city, if you sack a tier 5 city, it should go down to tier 3, which is the max settlement level that the Ogre Kingdoms can have in the first place. So as the Ogre Kingdoms, especially as Greasus, because Greasus himself gets a 50% sack bonus, you should always be sacking a high level city because you don't care about a city's level. All of your units come out of your camps, and your cities don't really matter that much. The only cities that are kind of important are the cities that have trade goods in them because the ogres make a lot of money off of trade, especially Greasus. Greasus makes a shit ton of money off of trade. I think I'm making 1,600 right now, which isn't, I guess it's not a shit ton, but it's definitely substantial. But as you can see, the camp buildings are definitely where I'm getting a large majority of my income, which is why camps being protected are so important. Which is also why I would focus your camps in your technology tree. I would definitely don't waste your time too much getting these ancillary, is it ancillary, tertiary, secondary technologies here, because you want to get these camps as fast as possible. It's better units, it's more money, it's more protection. It's everything you want is in the camps. They're so important. Plus, you always want to leave one camp capacity open so that whatever army is out in the field can drop a camp if they need to. So right now I'm maxed out on camps, but that's because I'm currently working towards my next technology. And I think that's about all the beginner tips I have that I can think of. I think the main thing to focus on is camps are not, with the way they are currently, in my opinion, camps are more important to be protected in your own provinces than to be used as forward bases. I think you should use them as forward replenishment centers, but I do not think you should be building camps and upgrading them a lot in enemy territory, simply because it's a big investment. They're costly to protect because you have to spend the money to recruit units into them if you want to protect them. So I just don't think it's worth it to build a lot of them outside of your cities. I would just cluster them up, keep them safe, build the money buildings in them. These money buildings are huge. It's probably the most money that you can make as the Ogre Kingdoms, especially as Scrag, because Scrag does not have this 2,300 monster of a city that Greasus has. And then final honorable mention tip. This is more for my co-op gamers out there. Because the camps make so much money for the Ogre Kingdoms, you don't actually need your cities to support probably an army. You definitely don't. You can support one of your main lords, your legendary lord's army. You can support him with just maybe the background income and 1 or 2 camps, depending on their upgrade level. And the more camps you get, the more you can support. So, for example, you could, and I have actually done this before. Once the first Chaos Rifts show up, you could actually go through a Chaos Rift and teleport to wherever your friend is on the map. And when you teleport to wherever they are, you can just set up a bunch of camps near them, and you can just make a new home for yourself. You don't have to stay where you are, which is honestly one of the coolest things I've seen for co-op and Warhammer, because unless you're playing a horde faction like Beastmen, for example, you have to protect your initial settlements most of the time, because usually they provide a unique building chain that's important to your faction, or they provide income that you need to support your army. But the Ogre Kingdoms don't need that. All you really need is your camps. So you could go through a portal and teleport down here to Kislev, for example, and you could set up a bunch of rifts. Sorry, I just saw the rift and it came into my head. Like, for example, I could teleport down here next to my good friend Scrag, and I could put a camp in each of his regions and just play with Scrag the whole time. So, anyway, I hope you found this useful, or somebody found this useful. I know I ramble and I mumble and I say a little too much. I'm sorry. But I hope that this was helpful, and I'm sorry that it was a little long. Goodbye.